In this episode, we're going to break down episode 5 of Moon Knight and try to make sense of everything we just learned. Jumping right in, this episode explained so much, and yet still left us completely lost, of course. As theorized, we do end up following Mark and Steven's journey towards the Field of Reeds, and we get much more of their backstories. It seems like this whole illusion takes place in an asylum and is supposed to represent something familiar. So, it would make sense that Mark has actually been in and out of one during his lifetime, which I'm pretty sure is something we all could have guessed. What did surprise me, however, was the fact that Taweret references the ancestral plane that we learned about back in Black Panther, and basically confirms that the afterlife that you end up in is essentially the one that you believe in, which is really cool and makes a lot of sense considering the MCU now is full of different kinds of gods and religions. But the ultimate reveal of the episode is what Mark actually went through that was so traumatic that really did fracture his mind. And it wasn't just one thing, it was pretty much the snowball effect after this pinpoint of where he lost his brother. As if watching that one experience wasn't enough, we follow along as his mother is completely changed from that point and blames him for everything that has happened. It shows that it was far more drawn out trauma, which is why he had to constantly bring Steven back throughout the years. Eventually he did learn how to control him and keep him at bay, but after the death of his mother he just had to bring him back out. And that finally explains why their lives started falling into one another. And that's really where we picked up at the beginning of this season, following Steven's journey. And I was fully expecting to see Jake Lockley make his first appearance at that funeral scene, and him come out of that transference, but I guess we're still waiting. This does make me wonder though, if, since Mark created Steven to be able to, say, hide behind and have no fear towards his mother, what if that first encounter was too much for Steven as well? So he even created someone that was more ruthless who could take it, like, say, Jake, because so far all the teases that we've had of him have made him seem more wild and a little more ruthless than Mark or Steven, and maybe that's why. Maybe he got more of the blunt end than them. During this whole explainer, we saw more confusing imagery as we follow his past trauma, such as his brother drawing a fish with one fin, like Steven's pet Gus, which obviously doesn't make any sense timeline-wise. And we also see a bird skeleton that looked very similar to Khonshu. In the comics, it was revealed that Khonshu was behind a lot of Mark's pain in order to eventually take over his body. So, this could potentially be foreshadowing that he's been around all along. He's been the one playing the cards and really trying to break Mark from the start, which would be an amazing reveal at the end, because so far it honestly doesn't seem like it's been that. It seems like Khonshu really does just need Mark's help as an avatar, but that's yet to be seen. However, we did get to see Mark's resurrection scene and see how he actually became Moon Knight, which was very comic accurate and awesome to see. We even get Bushman confirmed to be the other mercenary, which in the comics he is also the one who decided to go against everyone and basically slaughter everyone there, including Mark. And talking about Khonshu being around for everything, Khonshu acknowledges Steven's already broke mind, which may also add on to that theory that he just wants to further break him in order to one day possess his body. Or maybe he acknowledges it because obviously been around for it and he's the one who's led up to the events of him losing his brother. As for the very confusing depiction of hopping back and forth between seeing Dr. Harrow and then actually going through the memories, the way I took it was that it was just his mind trying to cope with everything. But during those scenes, we did get a few more interesting nods, like when Dr. Harrow tries to call Steven's mother. We get this reference to Dylan, who is also the tour guide from episode 1, who is apparently the receptionist in this illusion. And I really like the idea of us actually seeing a glimpse of Jake this episode, but it was so covered up by everything else that it was harder to notice. It's during this same Dr. Harrow scene, when Steven starts to get more wild, talking to him, his accent seems to change a little bit, and his actions seem far more sporadic than Mark or Steven's have yet. Because I can't see Steven really grabbing that paperweight and trying to either attack Harrow or himself. And finally, there is another QR code. After the first 2 episodes, we all started looking for them and could never find another one, and then now it just suddenly it's back. And it actually takes you to the first solo issue of Moon Knight, just like how we follow his MCU origin story in this episode. And now that we know what Steven was based on, I thought it was really nice to see him live up to that fearless title by saving Mark and ultimately sacrificing himself just to protect him like he was always meant to do. Rather than being more delusional to the situations around him, like we've seen in previous episodes. His sacrifice also calls back to that little girl in the first episode who asked him about being rejected from the field of reeds. I believe the reason the scales did balance after Steven, quote-unquote, fully died was because they never uncovered that third personality. They never found Jake and had that third heart to balance with them. But since Steven was gone, and technically they're the same hearts, there are only 2 personalities left to judge. There was only Jake and Mark, so those 2 hearts were able to finally balance. This may not be the case, but I think it'd be really cool considering it would tie Jake in a little bit more. And now that we relived these traumatic experiences, the staircase in the end credits finally makes sense, because we saw that Steven ran up them as he rediscovered these hidden memories for the first time. Which just further proves that even from the first episode, everything ties in to one another, and we've seen so much foreshadowing throughout the series without even realizing it at first. And overall, Oscar's performance was truly incredible. I think we can all agree upon that because he quite literally acted with himself for almost the entire episode. He basically carried the entire episode by himself, which I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been. And that's everything I noticed in episode 5. There was so much going on, so it was really hard to find everything. So if there's anything I missed, let me know down in the comments below because I'd love to hear it. And that's that. See ya.